The King of Fighters is one of the longest running fighting game series out there, having 15 mainline entries. Throughout the years, KOF has also had a number of spin-offs, like the fully 3D Maximum Impact series or the pocket-sized brawls of KOF R and R2. Those games are widely known and loved within the KOF community, unlike the game we'll be talking about today, which couldn't be any different. It's a classic style KOF game that is widely ignored and forgotten, but does it deserve that reputation, and is it worth playing today? Welcome to Weird Fighting Games, Episode 14, The King of Fighters, Neowave. So, what is a Neowave? Well, to explain that, I have to take you back to the mid-2000s. SNK had just released Maximum Impact, and at the same time, they were also hard at work on the future of 2D KOF. By the time KOF 2003 was completed, it was clear that the Neo Geo hardware was being pushed to its limits. It just wasn't viable to continue using aging hardware. So it was decided that the King of Fighters' future, and SNK's by extension, would be on the Adamus Wave. The Adamus Wave is an arcade board developed by the Sammy Corporation that is based on Sega Dreamcast architecture. It was touted as a low-cost arcade board, which I'm sure was very appealing to SNK after just coming back from financial ruin a couple of years prior. There weren't many games made for the Adamus Wave, as this was well into the dying days of arcades across the world. Some notable examples are Hokuto no Ken and Guilty Gear Isuka, which already has its own Weird Fighting Games episode. SNK seemed to be all in on Adamus Wave, as it agreed to develop 5 games for the arcade board, one of those games being The King of Fighters, Neowave. Instead of jumping right into making the sequel to The King of Fighters 2003, SNK wanted to give their developers the opportunity to get used to the new hardware, but they also didn't want to do a simple port of a previous game. Thus, Neowave was born. It's something that's new and old at the same time. Neowave was released in arcades in 2004 and ported to the PlayStation 2 and original Xbox in 2005 and 2006, respectively. I couldn't find a reliable source on what the price was at the time of release, but it seems it was on the cheaper side, around $20 USD. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $20 million today. Strangely enough, the PS2 version was never released in the United States. Even stranger is that KOF Neowave was the last game to be released on the Xbox in Japan. In Neowave, you won't find any of the new gameplay features or characters introduced in 2003. Neowave is classic KOF at its core. Neowave's gameplay feels closest to 2002. Honestly, if you've played any KOF game, you should have no problem jumping right into Neowave. Although, Neowave does have a couple of new features that make it stand out. Before selecting your characters, you're given the option to select one of 3 modes. One gives you access to special cancels, one gives you a guard break attack on quarter circle forward CD, and the last one gives your character access to their max 2 desperation move. It sounds simple on the surface, but these modes are much deeper than they seem. They're a lot like grooves from Capcom vs SNK 2. For example, Guard Break mode can only stock 2 supers and gives you access to Just Defend at the cost of not being able to use Guard Cancel Blowback. The Guard Break move is a lot like KOF 15's Shatter Strike now that I think about it. Special Cancel mode has no real drawbacks and has the biggest meter, being able to hold 3 stocks of super. You can cancel specials and supers like Max Mode in KOF 2002 at 25% meter per cancel, making this game feel like, in a way, a prototype of the King of Fighters 13. By far the craziest one is the Max 2 mode. You can only stock 1 super, but you get really fast passive meter gain, but lose access to roll entirely. That's a big drawback, but the meter gain in this mode is just insane. Out of the 3 available modes, I think Super Cancel mode is the most useful because it gives you access to cancel combos whenever you want, although even with the drawbacks, the other modes are worth experimenting with. The 3 modes actually solve a problem the King of Fighters 2002 had. In that game, you could only cancel special moves in the special moves or supers. Not every character could synergize with that system well. In Neowave, if your character can't get much out of special cancels or special in the super cancels, they can pick one of the other modes. There is one more feature unique to Neowave, Heat Mode. Activated by pressing LB/L1, you get a damage increase and your life will start draining until you get to the last 20% of your life bar. Unlike the different modes, I can't really find a good reason to use heat. The amount of extra damage just isn't worth it. It doesn't offset the damage you're taking. That's about all the new you're gonna get from Neowave because the roster plays things very safe. Outside of a small handful of Nest Saga characters, it's all Orochi Saga characters. This game has to have the strangest team I've ever seen in a KOF game. Shingo, Kula, and Kyo's dad. I find it odd that they included Kyo's dad because this is the first time he was playable since '98, meaning they had to tweak his moveset and combos to fit into the KOF 2002 formula. After putting in the work to modernize him, you'd think they'd use him more, but no, didn't even make it into 2002 UM, and everyone's in that game. That aside, there are a couple of secret characters that can be selected by hovering over specific characters and holding RT/R2. Kim can be selected by hovering over his counterpart, Ramon can be selected by hovering over Joe, and Vanessa can be selected by hovering over Andy. The same can be done to get the Orochi variations of Chris, Yashihiro, and Shermie, and you don't even need to pay extra. You can unlock a couple of more characters by playing Endless Mode, including Kusanagi, Rugal, and Seth. The PlayStation 2 version has 2 exclusive characters, Mei Li and Angel. They weren't included in the Xbox version due to licensing issues with Eolith. Being a Dream Match game, Neowave has no story whatsoever. You don't even get win quotes, and there aren't many, if any, special intros. In fact, I think this is one of the only games that doesn't have a Kyo vs Iori special intro. It's as bare bones as it gets. The stages are what you'd expect from a KOF game of this era. These 3D backgrounds, when used in conjunction with the 2D sprites, always give me this weird feeling. The two contrast, they don't look like they inhabit the same world. The 3D backgrounds, despite imitating real places, feels empty, despite the upbeat music and characters doing crazy fighting moves. They're always filled with tons of bright colors and flashy doodads here and there. They look quite nice, and I'm even a bit nostalgic for them. I don't know, do you guys see what I'm saying here, or am I just crazy? If Neowave is known for one thing, it would be its exclusive boss character. Defeat all that stand in your way and you come face to face with the one and only Geese Howard. That's right, Neowave's ultimate challenge is Geese Howard, but it's not any old goose. Quite the opposite. This version of Geese is based off of his appearance in The Art of Fighting 2, and so is his stage. His moveset is quite small, only having a handful of moves, but to compensate, they are extremely powerful. For his voice lines, they reuse ones already recorded, but they pitch shifted them up, making it sound like he inhaled a bunch of helium before the match.
That was my disgust.
My best guess is that they wanted him to sound younger since this is young Geese, but it's just goofy. I know the sprites in KOF games can't compare to The Art of Fighting or even Fatal Fury, but I've always preferred them to their more detailed counterparts, and Young Geese translates pretty well into the KOF art style. It's a shame they never brought this character back for KOF 11, 2K2 or even Neo Geo Battle Coliseum, but hey, this is a costume in Tekken 7, so I guess that counts for something. And I'm sure his legacy lives on in many fan-made Mugen projects. SNK did a great job of taking Art of Fighting 2 Geese and putting him in the King of Fighters.
Silly voice aside.
The music in Neowave isn't half bad. In terms of a KOF soundtrack, I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's not bad either. I really like the character select theme. It gives me Fatal Fury vibes. The track Beyond the Wall samples some voices that might sound familiar to you if you've played Persona 3. Have a listen.
So dance while I put you in a trance. So dance while I put you in a trance. Let's party, boogie in your body. Let's party, put the boogie in your body.
Interestingly enough, Neowave predates Persona 3 by a whole 2 years, so I guess these voice samples were just popular in mid-2000s Japanese game development. And those are just 2 examples. While editing the video, I found that the track Spirits has the chanting from the original version of Ocarina of Time's Fire Temple, which coincidentally is from another sound CD. I guess the composer just really liked those CDs. And hey, KOF's a game with CD attacks in it. Is that a coincidence? Yes. There are definitely enough memorable tracks in here that make it worth a listen. If you have KOF 15, you can listen to the entire soundtrack in the DJ station and even set it as stage themes, so give it a listen. Neowave's most striking aspect to me has to be the character illustrations. Rather than get one of their own artists for Neowave, SNK got Tomokazu Nakano to handle things. Tomokazu is mostly known for his work on the Power Instinct series. I really like how he drew the hair. It flows really well, especially on the longer haired characters, and the shading is great. I really wish he did more work for SNK because what we have here is fantastic and gives Neowave's promotional art a distinct look that stands out amongst its many peers. In the long history of the King of Fighters series, it's a no-brainer why Neowave has been historically overlooked. On a first impression, the game seems to be nothing more than an offshoot of 2002, but peel back the layers, and I think there's more than enough here to make it worth a play. There are 3 unique modes that drastically alter the gameplay. You've got the heat mechanic to mess around with, and it has exclusive characters like Young Geese and Kyo's dad you can't find anywhere else. Neowave very well might have just been a stepping stone to other KOF games, but I think it's an important part of KOF history, and if you're a fan of KOF, you've got nothing to lose. Check out this odd part of KOF history. Needless to say, the King of Fighters, Neowave, is a weird fighting game. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.
Yeah.